Hey there, emerging expat! You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you, YouTube travelers, and our resident of Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kaylee. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Chris talks about his journey from serving in the Azores to settling in Porto, diving into the real-life challenges and rewards of making Portugal home. To keep this podcast going strong, we've included a few brief ads. Thanks for supporting us by listening.
One of the most important pre-move things to consider involves your finances. Here's the cool thing. If you've moved already, it's not too late.
Yeah, that's right, because we met John a little late in our journey, but he certainly helped us make sure that we're on the right track.
John McNerney from Green Ocean Advisors is an American living in Lisbon with an office in San Francisco, which helps him have a pulse on both sides of the pond. John helps people understand where they're at before they take the plunge and move abroad.
As a financial advisor, John can help you understand your financial position no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're curious about what your realistic retirement date is or how to invest your money post-retirement.
His love for finance and the differences between US and Europe have given him the ability to guide his clients in the right direction when it comes to investing and allocating funds. For example, you might want to sell your house before you become a tax resident here in Portugal, so you're not paying additional taxes here.
Josh and I have even talked to him on several occasions about some major life events that have happened to us and how to navigate them smartly from a financial perspective. If you'd like to be put in touch with John from Green Ocean Global, click on his Calendly link below to schedule a free consultation that he provides our viewers to see if he's the right fit for you.
Just make sure that you choose the Expats Everywhere intro call for your free consultation. Hey, expats and travelers alike, welcome back to Expats Everywhere Presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast, and welcome back to Season 5, Episode 1 of the podcast. Kaylee, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Summertime, the weather's nice. There's been some heat waves, but other than that, it's been pretty good. Weather's nice, all the festivals, so much going on. It's a great time to be in Portugal. How are you?
Absolutely. It is amazing to be back. I'm so happy to get this going again, get that muscle memory going again. You know what I mean? Like that weekly routine where we can come.
Only a couple weeks though. It wasn't like that
but
much.
Still, you fall out of practice. So just to let you listener and viewer know, we are on YouTube, and then we also have our audio only. You can find on all the major platforms. But the way we start out is an introduction from the lovely producer, Victoria. So Victoria is that voice that you hear at the beginning of each and every episode. And then we slide into the portion for the next 10 minutes that we call the weekly welcome, where we get you caught up on the world of Portuguese immigration happenings, and then also what's happening in our lives and Expats Everywhere. Yeah. So after that, we move into kind of the main event, the entree, which today is an interview. Sometimes it's an interview. Other times it is talking about like a specific service that could help you out. Or
sometimes our travels, we like to, every season we've had some sort of thing where we've traveled somewhere and we've made comparisons to like this city compared to a Portuguese city, just to give you an idea of what it's like there. Could you live there? Would you want to travel there? So we will have that one coming up in season 5, as well as we travel a little bit of Europe later on this year. Yeah.
When we travel from Portugal or around Portugal, we like to take you with us. And it also gives us a time, because podcasts being what they are, they're much more kind of open. We're able to kind of decompress those trips and just talk a little more about
longer format, right? Just kind of hash things out, what we're thinking, how we're feeling, and you can do it in a longer format, which is nice. But I'm really excited about season 5 because we already have a really good lineup that we've already shot some. We're ready to go, and it's going to be a good mix of different interviews from people living and experiencing Portugal in all different places. And then also a big topic right now is what's going on with the immigration, with the citizenship stuff, with all the laws that are changing, how it's going to affect you, how it's going to affect us as well. Yeah. And so, of course, we're going to get experts on here to talk about that, to keep you updated on that too, because it's kind of changing quickly. And there's, even when there's not much clarity as to what's going on, it's nice to at least be like, okay, let's talk to a lawyer and see so what happened in Parliament today? Yeah. And even if it's not much or they voted on only a couple things, it's kind of like, all right, let's at least find out what that is, so that it's not just kind of like, well, we don't know, and there's all these unknowns. So at least if we have an expert saying, okay, it's just a few things, it's not this, and just to give a little clarity. For us, it's good as well, because we're getting ready to go through our citizenship journey here in Portugal. So it's like, for us, we want to know, but then we also want to let you guys know with what's going on to see how it affects you.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I've personally noticed over the past couple weeks that all of this new immigration stuff is going on, is that Portugal news, both the site and generally using that term Portugal news. It is vague.
Yeah.
So something will happen and then really not much information will come out about it. I mean, just to be frank about it. And then it's like the news cycle moves so quickly. It's just kind of on to the next thing without having much actual details about what indeed happened. So ideally, either on the podcast or on the main channel, Expats Everywhere on YouTube, we will bring experts or bring professionals on to come talk about these things in more detail once we have them.
Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to find what's going on in English as well. Oof. So even if you're searching, you're not getting hits on something that is a little more in depth because it's in Portuguese and you're not really sure what to look for in Portuguese.
Yeah, so, that's exactly it.
But it's funny because it is affecting people who are non-native Portuguese speakers. And so it's like to have some of this in English is good and to be in more depth than some of the simple articles that are out there. So we definitely want to give you that information. And then also we will be on the YouTube channel tracking our journey through citizenship and what all it's needed and how we're applying so that if you can apply, then you'll know the steps as well.
Yes, exactly. So we want to get you caught up on a trip that we just took. We have experienced now the medieval festival in Óbidos.
Yes.
Which was amazing.
A lot of fun.
More fun than I thought it'd be.
Yeah. We've done a few different medieval festivals.
Right.
And they've all been kind of different. If they're in a smaller town, it's a little different. Maybe, a little more packed in, less going on, as opposed to Óbidos, which is a walled city. So everything in there, but also kind of hilly too. But then also we've been to the biggest reenactment, which I think is the biggest reenactment in all of Europe. It's definitely the biggest medieval reenactment in Portugal, but I think it might be in all of Europe. And I'll let Josh say the name of the town.
So I've heard in
Santa
Maria de Feira.
Yeah, which is like that's
pretty
different
close
too.
to Porto.
Yeah, and that's different too because it's like big grounds. So instead of it being like within like a walled city and getting maybe a bit more of that, like we're in a castle-y area, it's more just like you're in the grass kind of stuff, but you get to see and do a lot more. They do have their castles as well, but like it's a lot more grass.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it is essentially like a fairground.
Yeah.
Versus
a walled city.
And then the walled city not even has to really be converted into this medieval feel because it is already
like that.
Rather medieval. But But
then we also did the one in Viana do Castelo, which is a bit more just in the downtown area. And it had stuff going on, fireworks and the king and the queen and everything, but stalls much on a smaller scale, I would say.
Fireworks, very medieval.
Yeah. You don't know. Surely they shot fire into the air, right? Not like
fire arrows.
Yeah, bows and arrows. But anyway, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah. And then we were in Lisbon, of course, having to, we were filming and then doing the fingerprints for the citizenship for our background check. And then also spent time in Caldas too.
Yep.
Which was our second time there.
Yep. Got to see more of Caldas de Rainha. That was nice. That was very nice, actually. Ran into Dylan from the Simple Life, Portugal, the Simple Life. So that was cool. Actually, just kind of bumping into him. Caldas is a small town.
It is.
When we rocked up, we actually had someone stop us like immediately
before we even got to our hotel with our stuff.
Like, hey, we know you guys.
Yeah, so that was funny. But it is small, yeah.
Yeah, and then we bumped into an owner of a restaurant. We were actually in his restaurant, but he's an owner of a Mexican restaurant. He is originally from, if I can remember correctly, Ecuador.
I think you said Ecuador. I wasn't there for that conversation, but yeah. I think
he's lived in Florida for quite some time. So he moved from Florida to Portugal and then established this restaurant, which moved locations in Caldas and is now in a better location. And he said business is going well and he's enjoying it.
Good.
So it's cool.
And then this coming weekend, actually, we're going to try something a little different, a little out of my comfort zone. We're going camping.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So there's an eco retreat place that they reached out to us and said, hey, you should check it out.
Is it eco or eco?
Ooh, I don't know.
I think it's eco. An eco retreat. Eco's like echo.
Echo. I don't know. Eco, fine.
I think it's eco.
However you want to say it, it's a retreat. And we are going to take a friend of Sia's and we're going to try this camping thing out. But I am a little happy that they have reserved the caravan for us, which has AC because it has air conditioning. And I was looking at the weather and there's another heat wave coming.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hot this weekend.
Yeah. Batten down the hatches, another heat wave coming.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So we will report back to you next week on episode 2, how that went. But it should be something fun, something different.
And one thing I did want to make note of, and I really wanted to do this earlier, but you might hear or see more advertisements, more sponsorships on the channel. We have season-long sponsorships, and we're bringing different sponsors on board. And yeah, it's really just to cover production costs and share different companies with you all. So I hope that you don't get annoyed with it.
But they're good companies. It's not like something random like
for sure,
makeup or something which doesn't align with what we do. So they are good companies that we can introduce you to if you are interested in using their services.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk about Chris.
But I just wanted to throw that out there because I know getting feedback from some people, like some people are annoyed by it. Others get it. They get that like you can't just like, for example, we use Riverside. Riverside's not free. We use Transistor to host the actual episodes. That's not free. So like that stuff has to get paid for.
We
somehow.
bought these fancy podcast mics.
Yeah.
So we sound good. Hope.
So
okay.
Just love for the love, people.
So let's talk about, before we get into the interview that you had with Chris, a little bit about Chris. I mean, he still works here. He's moved to Portugal. They moved with their dogs. They took that Canine Jets.
They did.
Flight.
They did. So some people are able to take their pets in cabin, like regular commercial airlines. Other people's go with Canine Jets. Other people do the Queen Mary. Queen Mary, from what we've heard recently, has been like really booked up.
Yeah.
So it's been very difficult for people now looking for places coming up to get them. They're just not available.
But I think even Canine Jets is hard too. You have to do pretty well in advance. So that can be tricky. But if you if you have bigger dogs and you don't want them to go in cargo, then this is an option.
Yep.
On a commercial flight.
Yeah.
Or use a pet relocation company. But anyway, they had a good experience with that. And then
so I mean, my conversation with Chris, really starts out at the beginning of his journey, which is he was in the military and he traveled. His kind of touch point, let's say, to Portugal was during his military service. He was in the Azores.
Okay.
So he kind of had some familiarity with Portugal and just wanted to get back abroad because, he loves new cultures. His wife's Japanese. They've traveled kind of all over throughout their marriage. They've raised a girl that speaks multiple languages. I think French, English, and Japanese. Probably among others, which, I mean, those 3 languages are quite different. So we talk about all that stuff, and he just felt this strong connection to Europe that he goes into, finds it more welcoming than the U.S., which I find interesting because he's American, but he still felt that and feels that in Europe. Yeah. And then we dive into buying. He ended up deciding to buy a property before moving. So they bought it off plan and they were letting it get built, knowing that they wouldn't be ready to move until after it was constructed. They spent a couple of years where it was being rented before moving. We actually toured it, and it's in one of our videos.
It is,
if you remember.
That's right.
So I think that was back in like 2021.
To get an idea of it, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like he's just talking about how he's adapting to life here in Portugal and, some of the significant changes that have happened with that. And then also a major reduction in his salary because he switched from being like a U.S. worker to a Portuguese worker.
Local. That can happen. That's
so without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
Let's go.
We know that relocating can be stressful. Trust us, Portugal is the 5th country we've relocated to.
So it's nice to have someone helping you out, which is why we can confidently recommend Global International Relocation, which is a leading provider of relocation, moving, and mobility services.
They can support individuals, families, and even businesses when it comes to moving internationally.
I like how they're able to simplify the relocation process, and they help with everything you can think of, and actually even those things that you don't think of.
Of course, you have the immigration side of things, but there are aspects like pet relocation, shipping your car, moving household goods, and settling in that are all things they assist with. They're really comprehensive when it comes to mobility.
With over 17 years of experience and having expertise in over 180 countries, they aren't just for your move to Portugal.
So for personalized assistance, visit global.pt or get in touch with us for an introduction and to receive a personalized relocation quote. Well, Chris, welcome to the podcast. This is a long time coming. I'm really glad to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you because I don't always get to interview people that I've known for a bit and someone that I call a friend. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I've been here for pretty much a year. Had our 1 year anniversary here, and it's just been a fantastic experience living here in Porto and in Portugal in general.
Nice. Kaylee and I have known you and your wife for quite some time now as you joined our Patreon pretty early on, and we've been able to communicate a lot through email. And then finally we got to meet you all face to face not long ago, and we've hung out since then. What's your journey to Portugal been like?
It's been many, I would say several decades in the making, in that I've kind of an interesting relationship to Portugal, in that I was actually stationed in the Azores Islands back when I was in the military. And so that was my first introduction to Portugal, and it was a wonderful experience. Even being in the military, that kind of threw that filter. And then in the intervening decades between then and actually moving over here, I have been reading about Portugal in so many different best of lists, right? Best to retire, best place to live, best place to work, fantastic food, best place to vacation, all of that. And so it's always been in my mind to try and to get over here and possibly live. And so we actually took a trip here for 3 weeks, checked it out, and we liked it so much that at the end of those 3 weeks, we bought an apartment back in 2017.
Nice. We'll get to that, but first let's go back to those military days. What was it about the Azores and the Portuguese people that you were like, yeah, I could do that?
Well, it's a very different experience over in the Azores. It rains much more, of course, than it does here on the mainland, but it was just, the culture itself was just so vibrant, and the physical, the geography is just gorgeous. And it really is the first place that I lived or actually visited outside the United States. And it just, once I arrived, I was like, I need to be in a place like this. This is where I want to end up. It took me a while, but I finally made it.
What was that feeling though? What was that like where you're like, I need to be in this? What is that you moved to?
This is going to sound kind of strange, but I've always felt more at home living in Europe than I have in the US. And it's very hard to ascribe that to any one particular thing. But I think what appeals to me is that sense of otherness, but yet it also feels very welcoming and warm. It's that balance that really has attracted me to Portugal.
I completely agree. I feel the same thing. I mean, Kaylee and I oftentimes talk about, especially nowadays, because people ask us a lot about, like, did we move for political reasons or did we move for economic reasons? And it was more like we've just felt more comfortable abroad, being kind of the unknown and the adventure of it versus like what we know and comfortable with in the US. So it sounds like there's a similarity in that. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I think so. I believe that we should always be challenging ourselves and always learning new things, and not settle into stasis. Let's keep going and growing and learning. And being here in Portugal, not only for living here in Portugal, but also as like a stepping off point to the rest of Europe and a whole other part of the world. It just begs for exploration, and living here allows us to really do that.
Nice. So you made your official move in 2024, but you just said in 2017, you took a 3-week trip and you bought a property here in Portugal. Why?
We came to Portugal with the intention of real serious consideration. And so at the time, our daughter was going to college in Switzerland. And so usually what we would do is we would fly from Seattle to Switzerland or some other European location. We would meet up and then take a vacation after the end of her school year. And so Portugal was, of course, much more intentional. And so we rented a car and picked out locations that we wanted to check out. We checked out Lisbon. We spent several days there. We spent days in more central Portugal. But Porto was definitely at the top of the list. And so that's where we finished our trip. And we spent 4 or 5 days here. And it just had the vibe that we were looking for, as opposed to Lisbon or central Portugal. And so, yeah, the last day we were walking around, and I always noticed that when we would be walking through the streets of Porto, I'd be like, "Where's Yoko? Where's my wife?" And I would look back, and she would have her nose pressed up against the glass, reading the real estate listings. And so finally, I'm like, "We're going in," and she's like, "No, no, we can't go in." I'm like, "We're going inside." And so I walked into the one that we were at, and I just said, "Who here speaks English?" And a woman raised her hand, and that's who we worked with. And we toured several units during the last few days, and then we found out about our current apartment, which is under construction, and that's the one we picked.
Amazing, amazing. And that was a different landscape for the real estate market in 2017, really before the rise that occurred starting about 3 years later, correct?
Yes, yes, it was the fire with the real estate rush was just getting started.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of construction. You saw, the scaffolding outside of several buildings, but you didn't feel the urgency. You didn't see the rapidly elevating prices that came a few years later. And so it was kind of a more leisurely experience, I guess. And since we weren't, this was not a real estate speculation on our part. This was going to be our home, and so we wanted to be very intentional about what we were shopping for. And initially, we we almost made the mistake of trying to purchase a unit like in the heart of the downtown core in what is essentially tourism central. And we actually put in a couple offers on places that fortunately in hindsight were rejected, which were then led us to our current area, which we are so happy with.
What were some of the streets that those properties were on, just to give us a geographical idea?
Near, again, here's where my lack of attention to my informational side doesn't come in. Down in Las Flores and
Okay.
kind of down, down in that area, and then also down by the Bolsa.
Okay. So we're talking Baixa, between Baixa and Ribeira, São Bento area, for those that know Porto a little better. Rua das Flores, over the past 5 years for sure, has become kind of one of the main tourist drags, for sure. Pedestrian only street, lots of shops and restaurants, and alojamento locales, which are short-term rentals.
Yes, and initially, that's in our uninformed state. That's where we thought we wanted to be, in the heart of the action. But then we learned pretty quickly that those places closed down pretty early, and there aren't a lot of just like day-to-day resources that you need, like grocery stores and the minis and the pingos and stuff. So that when we went to our current location, it's a much more suited to living. Nice.
Okay, so 2017. You walk into this real estate office. Around about what was the price per square meter going for then?
I can't say exactly, but I know that we were looking at like units that I believe were around. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not going to be able to answer that question in a way that will be helpful.
Okay.
So this will be a snip right here.
No worries. So right now we're looking at, like, for a new development, because you all bought something that was pre-construction or it was in the construction phase, and everything that I'm seeing in that type of condition is like 3,500 per square meter and higher. I mean, actually, most of the stuff right now is like 4,500 plus for things that are in construction or new construction. And I'm guessing it was much less than that back in 2017. So
I have a vague memory of Yumiko discussing this with our real estate agent, and I think it was around like 1,500, around there, 1,700.
Yeah, that sounds right. So what a steal! Well done. That's a great deal. Let's go back to your daughter, who was in school in Switzerland at the time. It's very interesting to learn that you have an American kid who is going to school in Europe, university in Europe. How did all of that come about?
We've always raised our daughter to be it's going to sound cliche, but like a citizen of the world, right? And she's half Japanese, and so she spent a lot of time in Japan with her grandparents and her aunt, and we just really believe in giving our child as much of a travel and culture experience as possible. And so she went to an French daycare and French kindergarten. So she spoke French fluently during the first years of her life. She still is very fluent in French. And then just a lot of trips. We were fortunate enough to be able to provide a lot of trips to other countries. We've been to Turkey, we've been to Africa, all throughout Europe. And consequently, she's always wanted to end up in Europe as well. Her dream location is living in London. That's we'll see if she actually can get there. That's still her goal. But yeah, just really wanting to raise a child who is well-rounded in many different cultures.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we've had the chance to spend some time with her. She's a very cool kid. So kudos on how you've raised her and how you guys are doing with her so far. All right. So let's chat about your move. So in 2024, you finally made the move, but you were really the one to arrive first as your wife had to continue doing some work back in the US. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, we arrived together in June of 2024 along with our 2 dogs. And then, so we had the summer together, but then she had to get back for work. And so she ended up going back in October. And so we had a very busy summer last summer transitioning the apartment from an Airbnb, furnishing wise and utilities wise to an actual livable condition. And so we were doing a lot of household shopping stuff, and then she went back in June. She went back in October, and then I just continued on here. I had my job. I transferred from Seattle to the Portugal office, one of the Portugal offices for my company, which was fortunate. And yeah, so just kept on here through the winter and spring.
What were some services or even maybe new products that you discovered that has made your life a bit easier as you've adapted over the past several months? Or a year now, I guess.
Interesting question. Let me think about that. I guess
was it IKEA runs, or were you buying furniture from different places? Or what other things helped you integrate?
Well, when you live in the US, you're kind of, you're used to having the same things, right? Everyone has an IKEA. Everyone has their local strip mall and stuff with the same stores and all of that. And so when you come here, you will discover that you will have some of those familiar names and those familiar brands, and then you'll have some that are completely different. So for example, like you said, there's an IKEA. We can go to IKEA here in Portugal, just like we did in the US. If we go to a shopping mall, like one of my wife's favorite places is Zara Home, which you can find in many different places. One of the different ones is Leroy Merlin, right? Which is, when people ask what that is, because it's kind of a funny name for us Americans, like Leroy Merlin, what could that be? I tell them essentially it's the Portuguese version of Home Depot or Lowe's. And so exploring those and learning how to navigate those, because we spent a lot of time at Leroy Merlin, because it seemed like every day after going to Leroy Merlin, we'd be like, oh, we forgot this. Oh, we forgot that. And so we'd have to go there again, like several times a week. And then it also kind of forces you from a language perspective to get familiar and to accelerate your Portuguese speaking. Because although many Portuguese here do speak English. We really feel it's also incumbent as immigrants to Portugal that we need to assimilate, speak the language as quickly as we can. So it gives us a good opportunity to ask, to speak Portuguese and ask for things that probably aren't in the normal vocabulary learning phase. Like, how do you say caulking, or how do you say, I need tiles for my barbecue or something like that. You learn how to say some esoteric things.
Nice. Yeah, I've noticed that as well as we're doing our construction project. There's words in my vocabulary that that would not be kind of in the average like A2, B1 learner's vocabulary. So you and your wife have accelerated your linguistic abilities with Portuguese to varying degrees. I think you have kind of different skill sets when it comes to language acquisition. And I know two of the different ways you've done it. One is through an online course called Portuguese with Carla, and another one is a certification course that my wife and I also did. Can you tell us about those two different experiences?
Yeah, so the Portuguese with Carla, I thought was a great intro course. It's video driven, so you'll be watching a lot of live action videos with Carla and her husband playing different roles, and so it's fun and engaging. And there is also an interactive component in the online part where you are doing your homework and then actually sending it in, and it's being graded. So that was very valuable. But the certification course that you're speaking of was tremendous. And as you know, it's a very large commitment of time for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 months, 3 months.
I think it's 15, 16 weeks. 75 total lessons.
Yeah. But it was small class. We had one person from South Carolina, we had somebody from Texas, and one person from Dubai. And then our teacher was in Matosinhos. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's very fun. You get to be friends. There's a real sense of camaraderie, and it is also very intensive. You're going through the workbook very quickly. There's homework that you have to do because then you're going to be speaking. And of course, with that small class, there's no hiding in the back of the class. You're going to speak, and so you're going to get your practice whether you like it or not. But it was a fantastic class, and also too, it was very very flexible because towards the end of the class, Yumiko and I were going to Japan to visit her family, and so what we were able to do was we were able to switch classes. And then so that we wouldn't be joining our regular class at, I think, 2 a.m. Instead of 5 to 7 p.m. as it was in Portugal. So then we just joined another family who was, I believe, in Turkey, or they were Turkish. And they were in Singapore, a Turkish family that was living in Singapore. And so we got onto their
same time zone.
Yeah.
Similar.
And it's just so, I love it because it's so global, right? It's so international, and meeting people from all over. And so we finished up our class the last 2 weeks with them.
And were they more or less in like the same part of the curriculum as you all, or did you have to repeat some stuff?
We did have to repeat. I think they were like 2 weeks behind us.
Okay. But you were basically getting your contact hours in and getting that done. Yeah. Yep. So to kind of give a little summary to the listener, there are certification courses out there, and we're going to put a link for this one that we're talking about. We'll put a link in the description section below. But basically, you need 150 hours, contact hours of Portuguese with a certified teacher through a certified institution, which that's what this course provides. And you can either do it 5 days a week, like Kaylee and I and Chris and Yumiko did, or you can do it twice a week, but stretched out over a longer period of time, like almost 40 weeks or something. But it's twice a week. So 75 total classes. So that gets you A2 certified. Have you gotten your certificate?
Yeah, we got that actually pretty quickly.
Nice. So it's official. You're certified. And then now you've just got to pay your time for 5 total years to apply for citizenship, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're just almost there.
Is that the goal? Like, did you come into this with the idea of let's get another citizenship?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
It'll be Yumiko's third. It'll just be my second.
Nice. What was the driving force in that? Why did you want another citizenship?
It's hard to ascribe it to any one particular thing. It's, but we are intending to live out our days, for now at least. Our intention is to live out our days in Europe. So it's best to do that with the full, as many benefits as possible with the full citizenship will convey.
Nice. Okay. I want to ask you one question before we move into kind of like talking about more about Porto and Portuguese society, because I think this isn't too dissimilar to some issues that a fair amount of our viewers have. Let's talk about your work situation. You're working for an American company, then you have an opportunity to keep your job and work remotely in Europe, in Portugal, but you had to change to the Portuguese office. Can you help unpack that? And like, what were the conversations with HR like? How did that go?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation because actually, my company is not an American company per se. It's actually
Okay.
incorporated in Ireland, but we are one
Ah,
of the largest companies in the world. We have over 850,000 employees around the world. And pretty much, if there's every country, every major city, there's going to be an office from my company. And so, I'm not working remotely. What happens is I was let go from my American office and then rehired in the Portugal office here. So I became a fully Portuguese employee of Portugal.
and what did that mean in terms of like change in tax situation or wage? Did you have to absorb like local wage?
I sure did. So you have to really, really want to come live here because I took about a 75% salary cut.
Okay.
Granted, I'm from Seattle, so I was living in one of the most expensive areas of the U.S. to live in, and so I was pretty highly paid. But that dropped substantially to come here to Portugal. That's salary to salary, but yet here in Portugal, my company offers several more benefits that the U.S. does not. So that kind of brings it back up a little bit.
Okay. Nice. So let's talk about that payoff and was it worth it? So what are you finding here now that you live in Portugal? What are the things that you like and what are some things that you've benefited from living here?
I find that I'm more relaxed. Um, and not just necessarily from a work standpoint, because like for work, I still have to find projects to work on. That's just the nature of my company. You find your own work.
Mm.
Um, and I'm working mostly on US projects, which means that sometimes I'm working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I've actually had to adjust to still working on West Coast time. So my day does not end until 1 a.m. But to me, that's nothing because I get to live here, and the food, the relaxed schedule. It seems like a lot more holidays that we get here in Portugal as an employee of Portugal, and just the day-to-day interactions, the walkability of the city. I am much more active than I am in the U.S. Just by the nature of walking so much more.
Nice. Did you plan on having a car? I know that you have a car now, but did you plan on moving here and getting a car?
We did not. And actually, I was very, very excited about not having a car. In the US, we had two cars. And then after realizing that they sat in the driveway for about 90% of the time, I sold my car. And so my wife and I shared a car, which turned out to be perfect. No real impact. And then coming here, I was just excited because we wouldn't have the mind space that a car would take up, that would take up, you know. But after a few experiences with Uber Pet, that's actually the motivator that drove us to get a car. We have two dogs, and transporting them to the vet. It turned out that Uber Pet here was very unreliable. So the first few times we used it, there was no issue at all. We have about a 50-pound boxer mix and then a 25-pound dachshund mix. And we had no issue transporting them in Ubers. But then all of a sudden they stopped picking us up and they would drive up, they'd see the dogs and they would drive off. And so if we had like a pet emergency, off hours or normal hours, we wanted to make sure that we would be able to get them to the vet, and so that kind of helped us to drive to consider buying a car. And then we also realized, well, that'll also free us up for so many other things. We can explore the country easier. We can go shopping easier. We're not limited to Ubering, what we can carry in an Uber or what we can carry home from the grocery store on foot. So it's actually turned out to be a very good purchase and just also a lot of fun to drive.
Nice. So from what I gather, you're not overly reliant on the car to get from A to B. You usually walk, but when you need a car to transport things, whether it be your pets or your groceries, you're apt to use it then.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, nice. Let's talk about moving these dogs. These are big dogs.
Yeah, a medium size and a small one. But yeah, they're not that hard to transport, actually.
Okay, but you weren't able to travel with them in cabin. Is that correct? You had to. How did you get them to Portugal?
We flew them over on an airline called Canine Jet, where the pets are allowed to be in the cabin with you.
Okay, so I wanted to get to this because I know this kind of part of the story. Was Yumiko the one that did most of this research to find out about Canine Jet?
She did, yes. She is our researcher of the two. I mean, I learned after 30 years together that I lend her moral support, but she is the investigator non-pareil. She is just great at it. So yes.
I'm sure that moral support is very valuable to her. Let's talk about the experience of flying with the pets using Canine Jet. How was that?
It was amazing.
Yeah?
It's expensive. It is very expensive, but we have a boxer mix, and a lot of airlines will not take boxer mixes because of the compressed snout and the potential airway obstructions. They don't want the liability for that. Even though our boxer mix actually has a full muzzle, we knew that there would be a good chance that the airlines would not take her. And then also too, you just hear these trauma stories of pets being shipped in crates in the bellies of aircraft and, not the best outcomes happening. And we didn't want to submit our dogs to that. And so we took Canine Jet. And so what we did is we rented a minivan and drove our dogs from Seattle to New Jersey, where we caught the Canine Jet, which has, we had nine passengers and 9 or 10 passengers and 9 dogs. And we get to the airport, and they also expedite. Here's the really good part, is that they also help expedite the process on both sides of the flight. So they make sure that you have all your paperwork in line, in order. They have veterinarians that they recommend for you to go see, because you have to get your pets inspected within 24 hours of the flight. They do that. They provide the certification, and then we fly over. And then there's someone to meet you there, and they expedite you through customs and basically pet immigration.
And was this Jersey to Porto or Jersey to Lisbon?
It was, Teterboro to Lisbon.
Okay, nice. And good experience, though.
Phenomenal experience, and just the peace of mind of knowing that the pets aren't in the belly of the aircraft, and also too, just like I said, the expediting on either side just made it a really great experience.
Okay, jumping back to the car situation, you have an EV, right?
That's right.
What's that been like having an EV here in Portugal?
It's actually been pretty great. I know that there are about 6,000 charging stations in Portugal. That's what I've read. I don't know what condition they're in, but Portugal's pretty progressive when it comes to EVs. My parking garage, which is a public parking garage, has 24-hour access. It has 4 charging stations. I've never failed to find a good parking spot in there. And if you're used to parking in the U.S., it is just an amazing experience here, because originally when I signed up for the parking garage, they said it was going to be 90 euros per month. And I said, 90 euros a month, that's not bad at all. And then when I went to go pay my first monthly bill in the machine there, it said it was 67 euros. And the guy who was helping me goes, "Oh, is your vehicle electric?" And I said, "Yes, it is." He goes, "Oh, okay. So I guess it's just 67." And then in the subsequent months, when I go to renew my parking, it is only 35 euros per month. So it's fantastic.
which is less than the all zone pass for one person on the Porto Metro. So that's pretty incredible. Okay, so earlier you mentioned that you like the food here in Portugal and in Porto. What are some of the dishes that you really enjoy?
Well, not to sound stereotypical, but I do really like bacalhau.
Okay.
I am not a fan of the I can't remember the name, the sandwich, the
Francesinha.
Francesinha. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of that. But the fish here is amazing. Octopus is great, although I'm trying to eat less of that. And the beef here is also the red meat is very high quality. I'm a barbecuer, and so I like to go around to different shops and see what the quality is. And so far, it's been pretty fantastic.
Let's talk about barbecuing. Like you do home barbecues?
I do, yes. We didn't bring much over in terms of shipping from the U.S. We only brought 7 items, but one of those items was my big green egg barbecue, and that's my baby.
How often do you fire it up?
Well, now that we're in the season, it's going to be at least once a week. I'm planning my next my first barbecue of the season, which is going to be a brisket with a hatch pepper dry rub.
Nice. Salivating. It's close to lunchtime right now, as is. What are some things that you need to do a barbecue here, at least like maybe an American style barbecue? Because Portuguese are known for doing barbecues, but the barbecue scene is a little different between the two.
Yeah, the one thing that I noticed, and actually had a conversation with one of my a Brazilian friend of mine, was that they don't understand why Americans are so fixated on hamburgers and hot dogs for barbecue. Like that doesn't even enter the conversation in a Portuguese barbecue. It's they're hard to find. Like you have to go seek them out. But yeah, that's not really considered part of Portuguese barbecue. Which is actually okay with me because I'm not a big hot dog or burger fan. I do like the bigger, briskets, shoulders, things like that, steaks.
Nice.
And also vegetables. I like to barbecue vegetables a lot.
Okay. Now that you say it, I don't know if I've ever seen a pack of hot dogs in like a regular size grocery store. When I say regular size, that's not going to make sense to the listener. I mean like your city Pingo or your city Continents. If you go to the larger big brand stores, whether it's Pingo Continents, Mercadona, the larger ones will have maybe packs of hot dogs, but the smaller ones, absolutely no. You'll find sausages. I do find burger patties though, like pre-formed burger patties in all the small ones. Do you struggle to find that in the one near you, in the Pingo near you?
Yeah, but I'm not really looking that hard.
Okay, because you're not really a burger fan like that. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Although I will say, like one place that we discovered thanks to Karina, my daughter, is Curb Burger. That is a place. Oh yeah, for that will make me love burgers. That is a great place. KERB if you're looking for that. Yeah.
Are there things that you miss about the US that you can't get here, or how do you cope with those things?
I would say there's almost nothing that I miss that much. The only thing I could probably say is like if I had a craving for like a typical American pizza, which occasionally happens. I noticed that like a lot of the pizzas here, they're more thin crust. There's less ingredients, which is actually healthier. But like American, not even deep dish, but just like kind of like I don't want to say Domino's, but in Seattle we have a local chain called Pagliacci, which makes a real good solid pizza. I miss that occasionally, but not too bad.
Okay, how are you with Pizza Hut?
I never ate there when I was in the U.S.
Okay, because I tend to find those kind of all over Portugal, like either standalone or in a shopping center or mall, right? And I've always found that weird because I'm the same as you. Like okay, as a kid, maybe I did the whole like, read a book and get a personal pan pizza if you get so many stickers,
Yeah.
whatever that thing was called. But I never really ate Pizza Hut, but they seem to be all over Portugal.
That is true. I have noticed that they pop up in weird spots, and it's. But then again, like we see Burger King here too, which to me seems strange. And then there's that McDonald's down in Aliados, and I don't understand. I was talking about this with Yumiko, and I just don't understand why those places exist. Because why would you eat there when you have everything that Portugal has to offer in a culinary sense?
Yeah, it's super strange. I've just seen Taco Bell's popping up here more as well. It's weird. And I really don't think it's tied to the number of Americans that are moving here, because most of the Americans we talk to aren't interested in that food. So it's like, I don't know if it's younger Portuguese people are now kind of gravitating towards that American style fast food or not.
There's a Taco Bell actually I noticed right by within like a 5-minute walk, and it's near, and it's right across the street diagonally from the oldest restaurant in Porto. But I never see people going in or coming out of it. And when you look inside, I peeped in the window or in the door, and it's usually always empty, and it's almost fully automated. You just enter through screens, you don't talk to anybody, and then you go to another part, and a bag comes down to shoot or something, I guess. So,
whoa,
yeah, it's very strange to see.
That is strange. Okay, so you work in a Portuguese office. What are your colleagues like? I mean, are they open and welcoming to you? And what are some of the conversations? Give us an insight into Portuguese society through what you're seeing there.
I'm part of a team that is, I would say, about 20 people. And out of those 20 people, I'm going to say 15 are Portuguese, and the rest are French or Canadian or Spanish. And we all work on different projects, so we don't actually work on anything together. And as I mentioned before, I usually work on U.S. projects, and so I'm working different hours. They've been pretty welcoming, but I'm hardly in the office. I go into the office like once a week, maybe twice a week. And we did have some people come down to visit from our Lisbon office, and then we actually got a little more lively. It was fun to see. But yeah, for the most part, everyone's been pretty welcoming, not super effusive, not let's go grab a beer,
Okay.
but just like, good that you're here. All right, we'll talk. Let me know if you need anything, kind of thing. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's been like.
Okay, so not deep connections made there. And then also you have a daughter, but she's not school age, which is the way that a lot of foreigners can kind of integrate in with the Portuguese, as like younger kids are kind of that conduit. So how are you finding it making Portuguese friends? And do you have any that you would call like a friend at the moment? I know that you've only been here for about a year, but how's that process going? Because a lot of people are moving here and they're concerned about that. Like, how can I kind of integrate into Portuguese society?
Yeah, so I'd say our closest friend is actually our neighbor across the hallway, Andres, and he's
Cool.
Brazilian because we
Okay.
bought our apartments around the same time, and he's been a big help with us while we were not able to be here during the final stages of construction. So he and I just went up to Spain on Sunday to go photograph a wild horse roundup. So he's a good friend. We have another Brazilian friend who is a real estate agent here, and Karina is now doing some work for her as well, and we go out with them and hang out. Of course, we know you guys and get together with you occasionally, and that is pretty much the extent of it. But my thing is that I did not move to Portugal to create or be in a little America. I want to be out in Portugal, and so I'm out there open. I'm talking to people, and if I make a friend, that's great. Otherwise, I'm just like enjoying the daily interactions, practicing my Portuguese, and yeah.
Are you able to practice your Portuguese with your Brazilian friends, or do you speak
Yes,
English?
we speak English. I don't know. I have this hang up about speaking Portuguese in front of him because he is just so easily fluent. We've been speaking English so
Mm,
much because like he went to high school in Michigan
mm,
for a couple of years, and he's worked for U.S. companies. And I feel self-conscious speaking Portuguese in front of him, but
yeah.
when I go out and am talking to merchants or to other people, I just dive right in and just muddle my way through. I actually count up daily the number of conversations I have that are 100% in Portuguese.
Nice. That's great. I mean, I totally, I totally empathize with you in that, Kaylee and I have a really good friend, João, who's the owner of So Coffee Roasters. And we met him under the context of speaking English. This is before really we were able to speak Portuguese, but his English is so good that I feel so silly speaking Portuguese around him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
I
you know what
do.
I mean. I know you know what
Yeah,
I
I
mean.
sure do.
But it's so difficult to like code switch with somebody. Now, on the other hand, we early on became friends with. At the time, he was the owner of Centro de los Pregos, a pregos restaurant. Let me back up. A prego is like a steak sandwich. We'll call it prego no pão is a steak
Oh, okay.
sandwich. Is the easiest way to put it. So he owned a food truck that turned into a brick and mortar. He ended up selling the business to his parents, and he's opened up another business. But all that to say, we met under the context of he's not an English speaker. Like he doesn't know English well as a second language. So I had to use my Portuguese, my limited Portuguese, to communicate with him, place my order, find out, about his life and like get his story a bit. And to this day, we speak in Portuguese. Like I feel totally normal speaking to him in Portuguese, even in my broken Portuguese, because it's either at the same level of his English or better than his level of English. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yes. So he and I can go hang out, and he's married now. So we can, get our families together and we can hang out and just be in Portuguese. And it's like, I feel okay. Whereas I think if I had to do that with João, I would feel very awkward.
Yeah. And with Andres, I kind of have a double whammy because like he's obviously fluent in Portuguese and I am not. Uh, I'm also fluent in Spanish, but and he is from Spain. Like he grew up until he was 7 in Spain, and then his family moved to Brazil, where he spent the rest of his life until he moved here. And so he's better than me in Portuguese. He's better than me in Spanish. And so I feel this like I can speak Spanish to him, but then also too I speak South American Spanish. I don't
Mm,
speak Castellano very
mm.
well. So um, yeah, it's my safe retreat is to like, well, just stick to English. But then I feel embarrassed about that too. So it's a double whammy.
Oh man. Well, I guess you're getting a lot of practice apart from hanging out with Andres. You're getting out on the streets and you're practicing to the best of your ability. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a journey, obviously, and I find that like Spanish is both a help and a hindrance because, as I put it, Portuguese is like Spanish plus or minus one letter and then spoken through a mouthful of marbles. Um, but as I speak now, when I'm trying to speak Spanish, I often find myself mixing in Portuguese with it because in my work, a lot of the graphic designers that I work with are based out of our Costa Rica office, and so I'm speaking to them in Spanish. But then I find they're like, "What? What'd you say?" And
Mm,
and I'm like, "You said this," and it turns out I've said a Portuguese word
yep.
instead of a Spanish word. So yeah, I'm in this weird in between place.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Anytime I have an interaction now with the Spaniard, I I want to be able to slip back into speaking Spanish with them, but then I'm always throwing in Portuguese words or pronunciation of like a
Yep.
Spanish phrase or sentence, whatever. It's a bit of a mess. Like I've not quite separated the two fully in my brain, and it's tricky.
Yeah, I work with a guy who's from Spain but been living in Portugal a lot, and just the way that he goes back and forth is just I'm jealous. It's effortless.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Chris, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives. How has living abroad transformed your life so far?
I guess I feel more connected to life, and I also have kind of like I've shed like the American persona. I don't necessarily. I feel freed from like the pressure and the political noise that's back in the U.S. I can kind of let that go a little more, and it just the thing that I feel about living in Portugal is that there is so much opportunity here, and it's for experiences, it's for growth. There's almost nothing that you can't do here in terms of just like exploration.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good
Thank
to see
you.
you again.
Yeah, you too.